Hey guys, welcome back to Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. As always, I am Jakey Bartender, and I'm joined on center stool by Drew. And Drew, man, we're going to get to the NBA today. I know a lot of NBA fans were a little disappointed we didn't get to talk about it Wednesday. But we're going to get to it tonight. Obviously, we didn't want that show going on for 3 hours. We try to keep it to 2.
Good God, it takes forever. Sharif, I know you're watching, man. I know you've been pre-gaming a little bit. Man, I'm going to start gaming with you a little bit here.
Absolutely. Hopefully our sound and everything is back on track. I'm hoping we're finally on track with this new software and everything's going okay. If it's not, feel free to let us know in the comments. We'll see if we can get it fixed. But Drew, why don't we start by talking about the NBA, man? Let's start with the Raptors and Magic because they're going right now. I mean, tied at 1. Obviously, the Raptors are supposed to be the heavy favorites in this. They really should be blowing them out of the water. I don't think the Magic should be in the series, but the game is still close, even though we're only in the first, or the first just finished up, and the Magic won one of these games too. Are we at risk of an upset here?
I think it is, and I think that what's more important at this point is the fact that Kawhi Leonard, seeing his team lose to Magic, a team that they should be easily sweeping, does he want to sign a long-term contract with Toronto? I mean, if they can't beat him, it becomes an issue.
Well, he's kind of already said, I don't want a long-term contract with Toronto, and they're like, we're trading for you anyway. So, I don't know. Again, if they don't get out of the first round, I wouldn't stick around, would you?
No, I think it's definitely a ticket to go.
Yeah. What's going on, Sharif? Good to see you back, man. I hope you enjoyed that Shiner you had before, man. One of my favorite beers. I love Shiner Bock. That's just me.
I like all beer.
Going back to the Raptors series, man, I don't see an upset here. I thought that the Magic were going to steal a game or two out of this series, but I think they should be able to handle it. I think this might be an early second-round bounce-out, though, because I think the 76ers, if they can ever get it right, the Celtics, if they ever get it right, and then you have the Bucks who are actually playing good basketball, one of these teams, I think, is a pretty good chance of knocking out the Raptors in the next round.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's all about Lowry and what he can do. That first game where he literally didn't score anything.
It's kind of an issue out of your stars, right?
It's an issue when that's your number 2 scorer in your team. He's got to figure out how to play better. I know he played a little bit better in the second game, but you need all-star kind of caliber out of him now. You guys are down. This team is going to get hot because, they weren't considered a favorite in this.
It's time to sit there and show that you deserve all that money and everything. And you deserve to be that star-level caliber guy.
You have to figure out how to do it.
Absolutely. All right, man, let's move on and talk about the Celtics and Pacers next. Obviously, the Boston Celtics are up on this one 2-0, and I don't see that really changing. Even though they're not really playing their best basketball, without Victor Oladipo, the Pacers really didn't stand much of a chance in this one. They kind of limped into the playoffs as well. You don't see an upset here, do you?
No, not at all.
Is this like a quick turnaround?
Shree says he sees Kawhi Leonard going to the Clippers will make them the number 1 seed in the West, man. Even over the Warriors.
No.
I get it.
Look, they're playing with heart
I get it.
right
The
now.
Nuggets battled them. Nuggets played really well at home all season long. Trust me, I was paying close attention to it. But the Clippers just have other issues. Even if they add Kawhi Leonard to it, that doesn't answer everything, man. Look at Toronto. Kawhi Leonard didn't answer all of Toronto's questions either. So.
Exactly. And I really don't see it. I know they're playing with heart right now, but this team is playing over their heads, not under. I really don't see them moving up anywhere in this draft, or by bringing in a guy like Kawhi Leonard. I don't see Kawhi Leonard going there.
Yeah.
I really don't. I just don't think they have the rest of the team that's going to be good enough. And he's not going to want to do like LeBron and go to one of these teams that's not ready to win. He's going to move on with another star somewhere like the Knicks, and they're going to build from there. I really don't see him going out to L.A. to play for the Clippers.
Right, and I don't want to sit there and knock what the Clippers are doing. What Lou Williams and the Clippers and Doc is doing as far as coaching is just phenomenal. You're asking way too much of your team who literally has 0 all-stars, playing and beating a team that has every all-star you could ever want. And it's incredible. And Lou Williams deserves all the credit and deserves one of the biggest contracts he can get after this season. If he's his agent, he should be sitting there asking for a lot more money. But Kawhi Leonard to go there, man, this guy's trying to win rings. Even though this team's doing so great, do you really see him beating the Warriors and getting out of the first round?
No, and I don't see him going there either. I don't see him entertaining it. He's going to want to go to a better team than this. There's no doubt about that. As for the Clippers, again, I think they're just playing over their heads, man. They were lucky to get in there, to get into the playoffs. They got upset at the right time, when they had the trades and everything, sending guys like Blake Griffin away. But I really just don't see them being much of anything next year when all this kind of emotion wears off.
He said, sorry, Drew, if Kawhi is added to the Clippers, he will make them a 1 or 2 seed. So, I get what you're saying. You see him, he's going to be out there battling it, but I don't see it, man. You got to think about it. The Nuggets are going to come back next year. They're going to be just as good.
And they're going to be older and more experienced.
Exactly, because that's the biggest knock about them right now with the Spurs, the fact they're too young, and into these playoffs. I mean, look at Murray. He just doesn't know how to handle the pressure right now. And then he goes off and says, the Celtics will win this series. Kyrie will go straight Jedi. Dude, I am right there with you.
Well,
but he's going to have to.
I don't think so. I think they could win if Kyrie didn't play a minute on the court in this series. When you look at the way the Pacers are, and without Oladipo, how it just kind of like took all the air out of their tires and everything. If Boston loses this series, it's time to move on. It's time to make big changes because to me, this is the most lopsided, or one of the most lopsided of any one of these matchups.
And I'm not sitting there saying that the Pacers are going to win, but you're going to sit there and tell me that if Kawhi is not putting up 30-plus points, that you think the Celtics are easily going to pass over the Pacers? I mean, this is still a playoff team. Yeah, they don't have their best player, but it's still a playoff team. That was the heart and
soul, and again, they were much better with him. I think they were like 10-19 without him there at the end of the season, so they limped into this, Drew. If he was there, maybe we're talking about something different, but if the Celtics lose this series, like I said, I wouldn't say fire the coach, but it's time to make changes because obviously something is not working. Jeremy, good to see you, man. And Scott says he was wrong about the Jazz. It's not over yet, Scott. That's all I can say. Every once in a while you get knocked out and you can bounce back from that a little bit.
I want to sit there and say, God, you got Scott, you got a bright future ahead of you as a Jazz fan, but I've been saying that for like the last 4 years that you got a bright future. At some point in time,
did that bright future kind of get canceled when Gordon Hayward didn't resign?
Well, you thought about it, but then and I'm blanking.
Donovan Mitchell.
Yes, yeah. Mitchell just went off. I mean, this guy's great. And then again, you're telling yourself as a Jazz fan, we got a bright future ahead of us. But how long is too long, and you never reach that bright future?
Hey, Frank, good to see you, man. Good to see you in here. Let's move on, Drew. Let's talk Trailblazers and Thunder, because I didn't see this one coming. The Trailblazers are up 2-0 on OKC. The thought was, I know they were the 6th seed, but the thought was Paul George is there. You got Westbrook, who can't seem to make a shot at this point. Everyone was thinking this team was the team to beat.
Paul George cannot make a shot at this point.
It's just not going well in Oklahoma.
It's not. And well, hold on before I go into that, because it's such a disaster there. It blows my mind. Shree said the Clippers are basically advertising for Kawhi. Kawhi just bought a house in San Diego. Man, if I had the money, I would buy a house in San Diego.
I think they want him. There's no debate there. The Clippers want him, but if you're Kawhi Leonard and you're Kawhi Leonard's agent, unless they're paying you top dollar and nobody else is offering it to you, and in basketball there is a supermax contract, someone else is going to offer it to you. Why would you go to the Clippers? You could go to one of these other ready-made teams, or you could go to a new team and build with someone else like a Kevin Durant or a Thompson if he leaves, Klay Thompson if he leaves Golden State. There's no incentive to go to the Clippers and be the 4th or 5th best team in the West at best. Yeah, you could go off to the East and be the number 1 or the number 2, like he already is with Toronto.
Brian says, what can be said about my Thunder, man? Dude, I'm telling you right now, like Paul George, he needs to get back to what he was doing in the middle of the season, where he was the reason they were putting up points. Westbrook, but he's banged up. Westbrook, he can't be.
He's throwing bricks, Drew. He's throwing bricks.
He cannot be the guy that's always trying to throw up 50 shots and only making 15. That is not how the Thunder are going to win. Don't get me wrong, as a personal stat, the guy's going to get a triple-double and look amazing, and on the stat book, he's going to be one of the best point. I almost called him a football position. He's going to be one of the best point guards in NBA history because of it. But that doesn't add to wins. They got to figure out the nucleus to bring around him if that's the future of your organization, and figure out how to win. And by all means, it's when Paul George is shooting the ball. And if Paul George can't play and Paul George isn't ongoing, you got an issue there.
Oh, I totally agree. And Scott also says that Damian Lillard is the best player in that series. Look, right now he's playing like it. He's the best guy nobody talks about, right? Damian Lillard out there in Portland. Look, if things keep going this way, it could be a clean sweep.
What's going on,
I just
Jimmy?
think OKC got cold at the wrong moment. I don't think they're playing particularly well. It's just a shame that when you see a guy like Westbrook that puts all these stats up and has all this success, and then it comes playoff time and he can't seem to find his footing in the playoffs, that's kind of a bummer to me. Do you see this as he's going to be the best regular season basketball player ever?
Well, to be honest with you, let's just be completely blunt here. Damian Lillard has not been under the radar. This guy has been tearing it up.
Okay, but when you're talking about stars in the NBA, he's not under the radar, but we don't talk about Damian Lillard.
But you don't talk about it because the Blazers haven't been good. And that's the issue. And to be honest, they got a great seed matchup against the Thunder because the Thunder doesn't know what shoe goes on or what shoe goes on what foot at this point. So You're asking me how far. I can't remember who it asked, but I think it was Frank asked how far he thinks. I think the Portland Blazers are going to go in this series or in the playoffs. I think this might be your guys' win. I don't know what the seed matchup is. I honestly don't know without looking at it. But man, I mean, you just caught the Thunder not looking the right direction.
Absolutely, I agree. Jimmy, good to see you, man. Let's move on, though. Let's talk 76ers and Nets, because we still got some football to talk tonight, too. I thought the 76ers were in trouble when Embiid wasn't going to play that game last night. Was it last night or 2 nights ago? I think it was Thursday.
But he's not going to be playing the next game.
I was going to say, it was concerning. I was like, man, are the Nets about to sneak away with a playoff win here? But honestly, Drew, they didn't really seem to need it. They pretty much took care of business. And even without Embiid, the 76ers...
He's out.
Really handled themselves pretty well without their star player.
He's out next game.
Do you think a lot of it came down to Dudley talking smack about Ben Simmons, sitting there saying, "Oh, he's great in transition, but once you get him a half court, he's terrible, or he's average." I forget what he said. I think he said he was average, or he's just another guy.
I'm still looking for that jump shot that supposedly Ben Simmons has. No, the Sixers are going to win this series.
The moral of the story is save the smack talk till after you beat him. I mean, why are you motivating somebody in the middle of a series like that? Especially when he's one of the healthy ones. I mean, that was a bad move. Not a good look, and I think the Nets kind of paid for it last time. The question is going to be, do the Sixers keep the pedal to the metal? Can they keep going at 110% like you need to in the playoffs? Or are we going to see them back off a little bit? Because I think this is one of those teams, especially look at the way, Game 1 was going through, and Johnson and Embiid were sitting there looking at their phones when the game was over and everything. This is that team that does not seem to have that same level of heart as you want to see out of a playoff contender. They don't have that same kind of drive. I just kind of wonder, are they going to take their foot off the gas if, they don't always have somebody sitting there talking smack to them?
I mean, is it that, or is it the lack of coaching to keep these guys focused into the game? I mean, at my point in time, when he's bringing up his cell phone or these guys just don't seem to have the heart to play. I know everyone's here talking trash about the 76ers, but they got talent. So it's like if you can't coach and keep these guys together and focus to one goal, to me, it's the coaching. That's just my opinion. Because none of this talent interclasses with each other. You don't have a point guard and a small forward trying to shoot the ball 50 times. You don't have that. You have literally everyone's kind of trying to do the same thing, and that's win games. And when you can't keep everyone focused and doing it...
Hey, trust the process.
I think you got a coaching issue.
I think they just kind of shied away from shooters. I think they should have spent more of those high-level picks on getting shooters. They kind of went with the big guys, and a lot of those big guys like Okafor and everything didn't work out. Embiid is a good player. He can shoot pretty well for a big man as well. But you took Ben Simmons, who's a drive-in and score guy. You got Embiid. I know they brought in Jimmy Butler and everything to try to address that, but I think they could have done better by instead of taking Ben Simmons, going out and finding a shooter or finding that next big guy. And I don't really have that guy. I mean, it could be Buddy Hield. You could have tried to acquire him instead or something along those lines. But I don't know. They went to play big ball, and the NFL or the NBA is moving away from that.
Yeah, it really is. Sharif. No, your Spurs should not be 3-0 because they are not. They lost a game against my Nuggets. I don't want you to ever forget that, Sharif. Even if you guys win 4-1, you lost a game.
And Jeremy's saying the Sixers are great on paper with their 4 max players, but they just don't jive together, and that can happen. I mean, remember, they did trade for Tobias Harris as well.
Coaching, man.
It's tough. I mean, they've only had like 40 games together or something
Or
like
is Jimmy Butler a disease in a locker room?
It could be. He absolutely could be. I don't know. I don't want to sit there and pin it all on Butler because they've had these struggles.
But
these struggles have been there.
But he's been a little bit quieter since they've gone there. But he's been an issue anywhere else he's gone. So I mean, is it there? Is that the issue?
So I'm with you, Jeremy. I think they're great on paper, but again, they just have not found a way to mesh. And in basketball, a lot of it is more about how well does the team play versus, especially in the playoffs, how well does the team play? They don't really have that. Yeah, so I don't know. They're in trouble, but I think they are going to escape the Nets. I know D'Angelo Russell's a great player, or playing like a great player right now. I just don't see the Nets really having the firepower to keep up with this. I didn't see it as a close series to begin with. Maybe it winds up a little closer than I thought, but Drew, they're not in any real danger in round 1.
Guys, I just want to ask you a quick question. Who do you want to see in the championship game? I mean, obviously a lot of people have the Warriors as the favorites. Do you want to see number 1 seeds go against each other? Man, I definitely want to see the Bucks play in the championship. I'd love to see the Greek Freak go off. I just want to know what you guys feel. What would you think is the ideal NBA national championship? I mean, what is the championship worth to you guys watching? What 2 teams make it the best?
I just want to see someone not named Golden State in there. And it's nothing against the team. I like Steph Curry. I like Klay Thompson. I'm not as big of a Durant fan, but it's okay. Or Draymond Green. I mean, whatever. They're on the team too. But I just want to see somebody else. I want to see somebody else out of the West kind of represented. I want to see some fresh faces in the finals. We already have LeBron out. Now we just need that second side of that equation and get Golden State out of it, and then we can have an entirely new NBA final. And I'm cool with that.
I'm cool with it too.
Moving forward, Drew, let's talk Nuggets Spurs next. Obviously, Spurs are up 2-1. Experience right now is beating youth. Can the Nuggets turn it around?
Yes, they can. Darn it, they can turn it around.
They can do it.
They got 3 games underneath their belt. They're veterans in the playoffs now. They're veterans. I don't know, man. It's a struggle. I mean, one thing that I thought, hey, we have a great home field advantage. They had the best record in home court. They can't lose there, and they drop a game. And I don't really see them winning the second game in San Antonio. So you're telling me the series is going to go back 3-1 in Denver, and to come back from that, I just don't see it happening. And unfortunately, I think my Nuggets are out.
I agree. I think this is a learning experience. I said beforehand I wanted to see them get through one round so that they can sit there and say, well, okay, we've made that push into round 2. Now next year we want to grow and push into rounds 3 and 4 and get to the finals. I just don't know that round 1 bounce out is enough experience for them. I wonder about next year. Maybe they add a savvy veteran if they can do it that, he's been around the block and help these guys out. But yeah, Kawhi would help. But I don't know. I just think they lack experience right now, and I think Popovich, nobody has experience like the Spurs, right? I mean, the Spurs are that team that they're like the Patriots of the NBA world, where it doesn't matter who you are. We're going to get these veterans. We're going to make it work, and somehow we're going to manage to win games. I think the Spurs are going to be able to pull it out, too. I'm going to actually flip where I said I thought the Nuggets win in 7. I think the Nuggets lose in 7 now.
If they would have took 2 games at home and they were up, I would say I think the Nuggets can do it. Well, obviously, they're favorites at that point, but losing one at home, man, it's a struggle. It's not going to happen.
And Scott's also saying Pops is the greatest coaching job winning without a lot of talent. I think DeMar DeRozan would disagree with that, and LaMarcus Aldridge too. But again, they're almost that second-tier level star that nobody talks about. We don't talk about them in the same vein as guys like Westbrook and Harden, but together, playing good team ball, they can probably make a pretty deep run into the playoffs. I don't know if San Antonio's getting past a team like Houston or Golden State, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't want to play them as one of these other teams going into round 2.
Yeah, I agree. Just to answer... They answered my question here. Sharif's got Warriors versus Bucks. He said maybe the Celtics. Brian says Celtics.
1 versus 1. You're really reaching for that one, Sharif.
Brian says Celtics versus the Rockets if the Thunder lose. And Scott says Bucks versus Warriors and Warriors in 6. And then Frank says Sixers versus Portland. That
would be great. Now that is stepping off the beaten path a little bit. That's the kind of predictions I want to see. We need Will for those kind of predictions. Go with the underdog all the time. But I like it, Frank. I would love to see that. Again, I just want to see new faces in the finals. I want to see some rings on some guys that don't have any on their fingers. Share the love, okay? I mean, how many times are we going to watch LeBron versus Golden State? Or Golden State versus somebody else? I mean, I'm fatigued of it. I want to see.
Of it. Well, it's the same thing with the Super Bowl, too.
Show me some parity in sports,
then
please.
I end up watching the darn game. I don't even understand it.
Well, you're going to watch regardless. All right, Drew, let's move on and talk about the Bucks and the Pistons next. Do the Pistons have any shot in this?
No.
Yeah, okay. Moving on. Bucks should cruise through round 1. They're probably, to me, the team that's playing the best in the East. They're the best. They're the 1 seed, and they're playing like it.
Yeah. And that's not a knock on the Pistons. They don't match up well.
You're not there. Yeah, you're just not there
well.
yet. I know they traded for Blake Griffin. They tried to make some things happen, and it got you to the playoffs. So I can't sit there and criticize them too much. I mean, you get to have at least a little bit of fun towards the end of the season, but they don't belong here. I mean, I think Milwaukee's probably going to sit there and prove that to everybody. They're going to sit there and probably sweep them, or maybe this is a 5-game series at best for Detroit.
Right.
And they're kind of going to expose them as a team that, made the playoffs, but is one of the reasons why 8 seeds don't really matter in the NBA.
It's true. It's hard as an 8 seed in the NBA to win. I don't even know the last time an 8 seed did win. If you guys know, let me know. When's the last time an 8 seed has won in an NBA playoff series?
And I'm with you, Scott. I wouldn't be mad to see the Blazers in the finals. I wouldn't be mad to see OKC in the finals. Someone like Westbrook that's been all around it but has never managed to win one. I wouldn't mind seeing him get another chance at it, but I just don't see it happening this year. I don't think they have the muscle. I don't think they're in rhythm to do it.
Sharif, don't even worry about apologizing, man. He said, sorry, guys. Still at the bar trying to get his drunk on.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that after the show. Don't worry about it.
I don't blame you one bit. I think this is
TGIF.
I think this is number 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm only on 3 or 4, but doesn't matter. Moving forward here, Drew, let's talk Rockets Jazz. Are you ready? I mean, again, we just saw the Jazz get slapped around. I mean, it was pretty rough. I'm not saying it's over. Defense can show up.
Yeah.
But I said beforehand they need more scorers than just Donovan Mitchell. I don't think they have enough offensive firepower to keep up a team with a team like Houston. This, everyone was saying, was a tough draw for the Rockets having to play such a defensive team. I think this is a tough draw for the Jazz. I mean, if this was OKC or even someone like Portland, I'd say they have a better shot, but it's tough when you're this good of a defensive team that doesn't score many points to have to go face James Harden, who can get a call anytime he wants it.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be the Houston winning in 5 or 6.
Scott said the last time an 8 seed win, I'm assuming, is Denver Nuggets beat the Supersonics.
It's been a while.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Was that when Tacumbo or whatever his name is? I always mess it up. No, not in my house. That guy.
Dikembe Mutombo.
There you go.
That's why you keep me around.
Yes, hard names are difficult for me. I don't even try no more.
That's okay, Drew. Do you see the Jazz having much of a shot in this? Can they come back?
Well, Scott, you tell me. Do you think the Jazz have a chance? Dude, it's a struggle.
I'm going to say the slimmest of ones, but it needs to be a defensive struggle.
How about this? Can they win 2 games?
Yeah. I mean, they need more than 2. They need 3. But
I'm not asking them to get 3. I'm just.
You just want to see them get to Game 7?
Yeah. Can they?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be Game 6, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they can do it. Not in a row, but I think they can do it.
Yeah.
I think Houston's moving on, though. Again, I think the NBA wants somebody like Harden going up against Golden State again. So they're going to get all the calls that they need in round 1 here. I really do believe that Houston is probably going to cruise through the Jazz here. Unfortunately for Utah, the process continues, and you need to add another offensive weapon or 2.
I mean, let's be completely honest. I mean, James Harden and what he is to today's NBA is the most purest shooter that we've seen in a long, long time. I'm not saying he's the best scorer of all time, but today's NBA, actually Charles Barkley was talking about this, I believe, or it was Shaq. I don't remember. One of the big guys. I completely agree with him. He is the best shooter and scorer in today's NBA.
I totally agree with you, and I'm with you on this, Scott. The Jazz just don't have enough firepower to run with a team like the Rockets. Again, it comes down to scoring in the NBA. It always does. Good defense is great, but eventually you need somebody that's going to put points on the board for you, and the Jazz just don't have that guy. Let's talk our last, most lopsided series before we move on to the NFL here, Drew. Let's talk Warriors-Clippers. I know they stole one. They came back from, 31 points down at one point.
And no one talks about that. Everyone
so Golden State's not going to get that perfect playoff run.
Everyone sat their starters about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And it was literally their backups that started outscoring the Warriors' backups. So even though I don't see the Clippers winning this, what I do like to talk about here is the Warriors are acceptable to loss if you can get them in foul trouble, or if those 3 literally all-pro, all-star shooters are not on. I mean, these Warriors can be beatable.
No.
You're asking.
No,
I'm asking is Curry, Durant, and I'm blanking out of his other name.
And Klay
Thompson to not be on fire.
Look, it's not even on fire. They're just going to be playing well, and they're going to beat a team like the Clippers. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Look, it's a great win for the Clippers. That's fantastic. It's a nice story. You get to survive an extra game. The Clippers get to sell. Well, I guess they don't because the Game 5 will be in Golden State. But I don't know, Drew. I look at this and I'm like, this is a non-story. This is the biggest thing coming out of this is Golden State is not in playoff mode yet. They're not in that time to dominate everybody mode. They're still in that regular season mode where they're like, it's the Clippers, man. We're gonna be fine. That's what it is. It's a non-story. It is one game. I mean, they're gonna go home and they're gonna be like, yeah, we beat Golden State one time in the playoffs. I mean, they beat us 4 times, but we got them. We got them one time after a 31-point deficit where they sat all their starters. Yeah, Drew, this is a non-story. It really is. Golden State's going to win this in 5. I'll make a beer bet if I won't give the Clippers another game. You want to take that?
No, I don't even think that's going to happen. But honestly, the Warriors are beatable. Let's be completely honest here, guys. They lost the Clippers. They had a 31 lead. You honestly going to tell me that some of these other teams are a lot better? Maybe like the Rockets can't beat them?
Ever the optimist. Drew, I love it. Maybe the Rockets. Sure, I'll give you the Rockets. Because they came pretty close last year. They got to Game 7. If Chris Paul had played that game, they might have been able to actually win that series. Yep. But beyond them,
I'd sit there and say
is Portland beating this team?
No. And I'd sit there and talk about Boogie Cousins' injury and what that means to this team, but it literally means nothing. They played all season without him. Even though he's quote an all-star, his injury literally means nothing to this team.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine. They'll play a little bit more small ball, but they're going to be all right.
That's
Scott also says the Clippers overachieved this year. Scott, you couldn't be more right. I think, again, Doc Rivers was talking about it. They were talking about, oh, you gave up on us because you traded all this talent away and everything. Look, they got upset at the right time, okay? They bought into the pep talk. They were like, we're still a good team. They managed to squeak into the playoffs. It's not going to last forever. They just ran into the buzzsaw in round one. That's what. It's too bad they're in the West, because if they were in the East, maybe they could upset somebody.
We're not talking about the most important thing. Doc Rivers was walking around with $2,000 in his pocket, dropped it, and some
guy
gave it back to him and said, "You dropped this."
That's the best kind of feel-good story you're getting in L.A.
Who's walking around with $2,000 in their pocket?
Doc Rivers. I mean, when you're on a couple $1 million a year contract, Drew, $2,000 is what?
That's okay.
That's nothing.
No, that's like rap star stuff.
That's like what I walk around with every day.
$2,000
in my pocket.
Money?
Yeah. You caught me. All right, man. Let's move on. Let's talk football next. Obviously, the NBA is in
Frank,
full swing.
I am on my 5th, and that is not crazy talk. All right.
And Scott says, to be the man, you have to beat the man. Until then, it's the Warriors' world. I couldn't agree with you more, man. They're the team to beat. I don't know who needs to get in here, but they're going to have to wait.
Yeah, someone's knocking.
All right, Drew. Let's move on to the NFL, what we've all been waiting for. We have, again, round 2 of our mock draft. We're going to be talking about some guys here that maybe aren't as high on your radar right now. I know you've heard about the Kyler Murrays. You've heard about the Nick Bosas, the Quinnen Williams. We're going to be digging a little bit deeper here. We're going to talk about the first 16 picks of round 2 and where these teams should go. And, Drew, we're going to start with Arizona, man. I let you go first last time. I'm going to let you go first this time, too. We both had Kyler Murray off the board in the first round. What do they do with pick 33? Zach is rooting for the Packers and Browns. Well, we're going to talk about the Packers tonight. The Browns just barely don't make the cut. They'll be on the back end of round 2.
Cardinals. With the 33 pick, they got to focus on their wide receiver weapons. Larry Fitzgerald will not be playing for the rest of his life. They have to focus on it. They're going to go out and get another big receiver, and that's going to be Hakeem Butler, wide receiver, Ohio State. 6'5", 227 pounds. He's fast. He ran a 4.48 in a 40-yard dash. He's got big hands. I mean, this guy is someone that's going to... What are you making fun of me now?
5'5" would be concerning, yes.
5'5" would be very concerning. And this guy is literally going to try to replace what Larry Fitzgerald is going to leave in his shadow. But there's absolutely no way this guy can. We can't ask someone of that. He's a Hall of Famer. But they're going to try their best with someone like Butler.
And Hakeem Butler also had 19 receptions over 20 yards last year in college. It led the NCAA. He's a deep threat. They've kind of been missing that. Larry Fitzgerald is definitely more of a short-range wide receiver at this point. He doesn't have the speed. Christian Kirk operates from the slot. I think they need to add that deep threat. I love this pick. It's a good one. I just have them going a different direction. I'm going to have them take Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle from Clemson. Last round was pretty strange for me. I didn't have any of the Clemson guys except Cleveland Farrell come off the board. There's just too much value here. You're going to take a defensive tackle who can rush the passer, who can play next to Chandler Jones and make an impact on that defensive line. I see him taking the big defensive Clemson lineman who's going to be able to play longer than his counterpart because he's 21 instead of 24 or 23.
I like this pick, but I had him going earlier to the Raiders in the first round. Brian says the police, if it was a policeman, they would just start shooting.
I was going to say, if it was the police, Brian, they'd be in here by now. Also, Jeremy says they're going defense. I'm right there with you, Jeremy. They need a lot of things. They could go wide receiver here. They could sell out and say we want to be good on one side of the ball and then worry about the defense second. So I don't mind the receiver pick here because they need it. I just think at least with my mock draft, there's too much talent on this defensive side of the ball to let this go.
Yeah. I get it. Defense makes sense. I mean, absolutely. But guess what struggled? It was offense. There's no doubt about it. And if you're taking Kyler Murray, which is what I have in my mock draft, or if you're sticking with Josh Rosen, guess what they need? They need weapons. As much as your defense is struggling, you need weapons. You weren't scoring any points. You were the lowest scoring offense in the league. So you're going to have to face that. As much as your defense did not do as well as they should have, because you guys got names all around your defense, you got to focus your offense first.
Absolutely. And Frank also said the Cards are taking 3 Sooners in this draft: quarterback, wide receiver, and offensive line. I already had Cody Ford and Marquise Brown gone from the Sooners. The only other guy, like I said, they get Kyler Murray. No one else can beat them to that pick. I think everybody kind of agrees that's going to be the number 1 overall pick here. And Scott's saying it's going to be Murray, Bosa, and Josh Allen, 1, 2, 3. Quit reading my mind, Scott. And by reading my mind, I mean quit watching last episodes, because I talked about the exact same thing. I'm in agreement with you there.
I'm not.
You had Quinnen Williams. Again, that worthy. We all kind of agree there's 3 great defensive players in this draft. You just mix the order up.
Jeremy said, honestly, they need as much as that they can get. They just need to take the best player available.
And if they could
you're
trade
100%
down,
right.
if they could trade down, if they don't love Kyler Murray as much as they did, as much as the kind of smoke screen has been, and we've all heard that they love him, if they can move down a little bit to go get more picks, I think the Cardinals should absolutely consider that because they need about 12 players in this team.
No doubt.
All right, Drew, let's move on. Let's talk about the Colts next. They got this pick from the Jets in the Sam Darnold trade last year. It's going to be an interesting choice here. They could go a lot of directions. Where do you have them going?
I have them going corner, Penn State, Amani Omoriorier, whatever the heck you call his last name. I will never be able to get it. I'll never be able to. I don't even know why you're telling me.
Amani?
Uh-huh.
Oruwariye.
Amani. I got it. Amani. All right.
You're not wrong.
This guy has all the potential to be a lockdown corner. They said this guy kind of mirrors what Revis has done in his career, and they think that that's something that he can be kind of similar to. So if you're looking at someone who needs to be a lockdown corner, somebody who can sit out there on an island and be by himself, this is what the Colts need. They need help in secondary. They need a good, true number one, maybe possibly a better two corner. Amani is the one to go for.
Look, if he's there, I think this is a great pick. I already had Amani Oruwariye gone into my first round. I'm just showing off now.
Yeah, I know you are.
But I have the Colts taking Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tackle from Mississippi State. He tore his ACL very early on in the process, but he might have been a top 10 or a top 15 pick if he was still healthy. He's dominated the SEC. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the best defensive conference in college football. So when you have a GM like Chris Ballard, who's a very patient guy, he had $100 million and didn't spend like any of it.
Yeah.
He's a very patient GM. He's going to go take the best player he can get out of this pick, and he's going to he's going to throw these couple months out it's going to take for him to get healthy. He's not going to worry even if he misses the entire year. You're going to get one of the best defensive tackles at pick 34, and you're not going to worry about it because it's going to help the organization going forward.
Don't get me wrong. This guy's definitely top 10 talent. I mean, if he didn't have the injury or if he didn't supposedly beat his girlfriend in 2016, this guy'd be talking top 10, top 15 pick easily. I think because of that stuff, he's going to fall later in the round, a second round, or maybe a top third.
And Jeremy asked how many picks do the Colts have in the first round. They only have one first rounder, but they have 2 in the second, and they have, I think it's 11 overall picks. It might be 10. They have a lot of draft capital. Some of it comes to the backside, but they only have 1 in the actual first round, Jeremy. Scott also says the Colts are almost there if Luck stays healthy. I don't know. I really don't, because I think Kansas City kind of exposed them. Even that playoff game against Houston, they didn't look very good. They scored 21 points early, and then the Texans kind of settled down, and they didn't score after that. I'm kind of worried about the Colts. I think they need help at wide receiver. I know the offensive line played well this year, but historically, a lot of these guys weren't very good. You look at the defense, they've got a lot of what-ifs, except for Darius Leonard. He seems to be about the only absolute stud on that defensive side of the ball. Maybe you could say Malik Hooker. They have a lot of question marks. They could be that next great team like everyone's predicting they are. They could also take a big step back next year if the offensive line can't keep Andrew Luck clean. So, to me, I think the Colts are still a bit of a question mark. Take it with a grain of salt because I'm a Titans fan.
I don't think so at all. I think that they're 100% playoff bound this year as well. I think they're not going to have much of an issue with the rest of the AFC South, even though I think there might be a playoff or a wild card playoff team there. But I think they're going to win their division and be again in the playoffs.
Let's talk about the Raiders next year, Drew.
Let's do it. I do want to get to one comment here. Frank says Colts are taking Sanders running back Penn State in the second round pick.
With what they need on this team, it's malpractice if you take a running back before all the rest of the needs. You could use outside edge rushers. I know they signed Justin Houston, and they have 2 young outside edge rushers that they think are going to develop. They need corners. They need wide receivers to help Andrew Luck out. I know they got tight ends, but you need more than that. You need secondary help. Malik Hooker's a great safety, but you could use another one beside him. They need so many other things right now. You could even use another linebacker or 2 to play next to Darius Leonard. They need so many things right now. I can't see taking a running back. When you already have Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines, you have all these guys that are, acceptable running backs in the NFL.
And trust me, I was with you, and they needed a running back, and I said that over and over again, and if they went out and got Bell, I'd sit there and, hey, that makes complete sense. But the way that Mack played at the end of the season last year, to sit there and go and pick a running back that early in the second round, it would make absolutely no sense. You're not believing in Mack no more. You're going a different direction when a guy that literally played really well for you at the end of the season, I'd say give him another chance, especially when you have someone like Hines backing him up.
I agree with you. Moving forward, though, let's talk Raiders. Obviously, we had 3 picks off the board. I went all defense. I had DeAndre Baker. I had Zach Allen from Boston College, defensive end, and I had Quinnen Williams all the way up at pick number 4 going to Oakland. So they've addressed the defense. I need to go to the offensive side of the ball for Oakland because even though they've addressed wide receiver, one thing they have not been able to address is Jared Cook is not back with the team. I want to sit there and draft Noah Fant, tight end out of Iowa, who you already have gone. I see him again. First round talent worth of a guy in a different year. He might have been in the first round, but we have a very deep draft this year. I see him falling to the second, and Oakland will try to get Derek Carr as many weapons so they can see if he needs to be the quarterback of their future. I see Noah Fant coming off the board here and going there and helping them in their pass game.
Jeremy asked, didn't they sign Jay Ajayi?
I don't know, actually. I don't think so. I think Ajayi might still be out there.
I think he's still a free agent, but don't quote me on that. I've been focusing completely on the NHL playoffs and NBA playoffs and draft. To be honest,
unless
with you,
it happened recently,
free
or it
agency
flew under
has
the
been
radar,
really
we have not talked
very
about
hard
it.
for me to focus on. Just to be completely honest, with the 35th pick, the Raiders are going to be selecting a corner, and that's Julian Love, Notre Dame. This team needs help anywhere on the defensive side. This guy has speed, strength, agility. It's someone that they should be looking at. His combine wasn't that great, but they talk about his pro day was a lot better.
And Frank beat me to it. He said Oakland sent all their scouts home. Beforehand, Scott had said Gruden is going to build a winner. Just wait, and I'm not his biggest fan, but he knows what he's doing. I don't know. I have never seen a team sit there and say, we're sending our scouts home, and they're not coming back before the draft is over. That, to me, is a very worrying sign. I know Mayock is supposedly that scouting guru, but it sounds to me like they've got some infighting going on in their actual organization where the scouts are saying one thing, the new GM, who's been a media guy up to this point, is saying another thing. I'm concerned if I'm an Oakland fan. This is not good news for them. It's not the whole carte blanche, don't worry, Gruden's got this thing that some people want to sit there and say.
I don't think it's that direction. And don't get me wrong, this is very discerning if you're a Raiders fan. I would be definitely worried about it. I think it's the fact they got a mole. I think they have someone that's leaking information of what they're trying to do, and they don't know who it is. And they're focusing the scout department. And they're gonna pull those guys and let them sit back. The Raiders and John Gruden and Mayock want to be co-op about this. They don't want their picks and who they're targeting to leak out. And
that could be it, Drew. But these are the guys you're supposed to be relying on. I'm not saying you're wrong,
but most of the scouting's done. Most of it's done.
At this point, I hope so.
So you have 3 picks in the first round, and you have a lot of people focusing on what you're taking and jumping ahead of you. And if that information is being leaked by any means, regardless of where it's coming from, you make drastic measures to move those guys out of the way so they cannot share that information.
This is very drastic.
But I'm not sitting there saying it's all going to be good because this fixes it. No, it doesn't. There's discord in the Oakland Raiders front office.
Now, Frank's also saying the Raiders are going back to the defensive line in the second round. I already had 2 defensive linemen gone and a cornerback. So, again, I had to address something else. Who did you have for Oakland? You had Julian Love? Is that right?
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And actually, we talked about it before the show started. I mentioned exactly to you. I said it would not surprise me one bit the first 3 picks that 2 of them are defensive line edge rushers.
I agree. They could go edge rusher twice and then go maybe address a defensive lineman a little bit later, a defensive tackle. So they've got a lot of options. I think we all agree they need a lot of help with the defensive side of the ball. They've addressed the offense. They could go guard. I just don't really see that guy in this draft that is really that home run pick that they need to go reach on him at the top end of the second round. So for me, I'm going tight end. If Noah Fant sticks around, they should absolutely take him to try to help Derek Carr out and try to prove that he is the quarterback of the future. And you have a cornerback, so I agree. I took one in the first round. I had DeAndre Baker falling to them at 24, I believe.
I had Marquise Brown. I had, I think it was Josh Allen, and then I cannot remember for the life of me what was my 3rd pick for them.
But the moral of the story is they need as much defensive help.
Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, well, exactly. They need as much defensive help as possible in this draft. I have Lawrence gone a pick or 2 beforehand. They might double up on D tackle if that's there, because Lawrence and Quinnen Williams both rush the passer pretty well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's move forward, though. Let's talk 49ers next. I have the 49ers addressing cornerback to try to get that guy to play across from Richard Sherman and getting David Long, cornerback out of Michigan. He has one of the best catch-per-snap ratios in college football for last year. He played almost 600 snaps. He only allowed 18 catches. So, to me, you're getting a lockdown corner if there is one in this draft. He's one of those guys that you're going to be able to sit there and put him on an island and say, take this receiver out of the game.
Yep, absolutely. At the number 36 pick, the 49ers are going to try to replace a wide receiver, and they're going to take your boy, JJ
Arcega-Whiteside.
Arcega-Whiteside. And 6'2", 225 pounds. They need help at wide receiver. There's no doubt about it. After Pierre Garçon is gone. I mean, this is a guy that's going to be able to replace that. You know, I don't know if this guy can play up to a number one type of receiver. I know Jake, you're higher on him
I think
than
he's the
I
best
am.
receiver in this class, like
But
from day one.
I think he'd be a great pick for this organization.
From day one, I think Arcega-Whiteside is the number one guy. He has some Mike Evans comparisons. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but you don't need to be when you're that tall and you're able to go up. You've got great body control. You're able to snatch the ball out of the air. I think if he falls this far in the draft, any team would be lucky to have him. I think we both agree. The 49ers need more weapons to help Jimmy G out. If they do get a guy like Arcega-Whiteside this late into it, it's a steal, one of the steals of the draft, in my opinion, because I like him better than DK Metcalf. I don't think he goes higher than DK Metcalf, but I like him better than DK Metcalf. To me, he's number one on my wide receiver board.
Well, in my mock draft, the 49ers get her at number 36. So
Jeremy says he thinks the Raiders will trade up to get Kyler Murray. I don't think they can afford to. I think they would like to. I think they want to move on from Derek Carr, but when you give a guy, I think they still owe him like $30 or $40 million guaranteed, that whether you trade him, cut him, whatever happens tomorrow, you still got to pay the guy that much money. They can't afford to let go of him, so I think that's why they don't trade up for him. But it's John Gruden, it's Mike Mayock. Again, a couple guys we haven't seen doing this for a while, so who knows, Drew?
Frank says that he would like Riley Ridley, wide receiver, to go to San Francisco. It's another one of those great picks, another big-bodied receiver. It make a lot of sense. They need that big-bodied receiver.
And he's not as fast as his brother Calvin was. That's, I think, his biggest knock. He doesn't have that same kind of speed and down-the-field ability that Calvin Ridley does. That's why I have him falling out of my second round. I'll spoil it a little bit. Riley Ridley, for me, is not a second-round pick. I see him more of a third-round wide receiver, but I don't see the gap between these guys huge. If this was another year, kind of like I've been saying a lot, this guy could slot in as a second or maybe even like a low-end first-round pick. But there's so many wide receivers right now. I just struggle to see a guy like Riley Ridley creeping up unless somebody just falls in love with him.
Spoiler alert, I haven't worked on my second half of the second-round mock draft. But when someone like that's still there and so many teams are in need of wide receiver, I don't see Ridley getting any further than the second round. But that's just how I've had it.
Let's talk the Giants next, Drew. I have Darnell Savage coming off the board for them. They need a safety who's going to be able to at least try to fill Landon Collins' shoes. And in Darnell Savage, who might be the best safety prospect in this entire draft, I think they need to address that position right now. He's got sub 440 speed. He can hit. He's a great coverage guy. He's that complete safety you're looking for. I mean, and he's incredibly fast on top of it. I think when you talk about elite status, a guy that could evolve into the next best safety in the NFL, he has that, where some of these other guys in this class aren't necessarily that, don't have that high of a ceiling.
I have the Giants also replacing one of their free agents that were a player that went away, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. They're going to draft A.J. Brown, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. This guy is considered one of the top talents at wide receiver in this draft. If he can live up to any of that hype, they won't really miss Odell Beckham Jr. that much because, hey, guess what? He hasn't really been healthy in these last couple of years. If this guy can stay healthy and he can get anywhere near the production that Odell Beckham Jr. is, I don't really see that much of a loss. Now, if we're talking like 3 or 4 years ago, no one touches Odell.
I agree with you. Now, I already have them taking Rashawn Gary, so they've already started to address that edge rusher position they need so desperately. I already have them taking Dwayne Haskins to try to fill in for Eli Manning. Safety's a bit of a luxury position, so maybe they go another direction here, but I think when you're drafting on talent and what's left, Darnell Savage, again, I think he could wind up being one of the top safeties in the NFL. If they get him in the second round and he evolves into that player, this is how you turn a franchise around. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Jaguars next.
Let's do it.
I'll let you go first.
All right, at the 30. Thank you guys for the pick. Everyone likes my pick. Hey.
Well, I already had him long since gone.
Everyone likes my pick.
Well, I agree. I like the pick too. If he's there, and they don't take
See
him,
all that negativity.
Again, it's
everyone likes my pick.
What negativity? I say good job. But I already had him long gone in my draft. I had him, I think at pick 20 or so.
Yeah.
So I had him going pretty early.
Absolutely.
But if he falls this far, he's a guy that plays inside and out. I love A.J. Brown. I think the Giants need a wide receiver.
They do.
But when I saw a guy like Savage fall, I was like, I've already had a bunch of receivers off the board. I'll just go take one of the best safeties in the draft.
At the number 38 pick, the Jaguars are going to focus offensively, and they need some kind of weapon to go with Nick Foles. Everyone knows Nick Foles loved throwing to Zach Ertz. Well, guess what? They're going to try to take their best shot at the third best tight end in this draft because I have both Iowas gone, and that's Irv Smith Jr., tight end, Alabama. Yeah, he's a little bit smaller. He's only 6'2", but he's got speed. This guy's he kind of got overshadowed at Alabama just because of all the weapons that Alabama has, the way Alabama plays, if this guy can live up to any of his hype, you're going to hear a lot of Foles to Smith talk.
The biggest concern I have with this is he's like 240 pounds. For a tight end, that's really little. You can get chipped off the offensive line, going out to receive passes. He's a small guy for a tight end. I wonder if he's going to be able to match up with some of these bigger defensive ends in the NFL. But you're right. I mean, they need receiving weapons, and he absolutely is a receiving weapon. So I do like that pick. I think they're going to go at wide receiver here. I have them taking Hakeem Butler, who you had going to the Cardinals.
Right.
I think he's a great big-bodied wide receiver who has down-the-field ability. I think Nick Foles and the Jaguars need to add somebody who could push it down the field to spread out some of these defenses and free things up for Leonard Fournette in the run game. Right. I think Hakeem Butler, if he's there, is a great pick for them.
Yep, I agree. I like that pick, too. There's no doubt about it. He likes his big targets.
And Scott saying Foles is sink or swim this year, coming into this year, as to whether he can do it or not. Look, they gave him a 4-year contract. I think they're stuck with it. He's going to get more than just this year. I wouldn't say it's quite sink or swim just yet, Scott. But the question is going to be, was it just Philadelphia was that good, and the scheme was that good, and the wide receivers were that good, and the tight ends were that good, and the offensive line was that good, and Philadelphia just as an offense was that good? Or was some of it Nick Foles? And that's going to be the biggest question in the AFC South this year, I think. Really because if he is that good, we're going to be talking about the Jaguars competing. If he's not, and he kind of regresses, and we see why the Eagles passed on him the first time, and the Chiefs didn't need to keep him around, we're going to see Jacksonville down at the bottom again. So it's a big question for them.
Jeremy says, can Fournette stay healthy?
Can Fournette stay unsuspended? Can Fournette stay out of jail? Can Fournette do a lot of things? That's the question in Jacksonville, too. I don't know. They've relied on him. He's been the heart and soul of the offense up to this point. I think he'll be there. I think we're going to get a little bit more healthy of a year this year. Again, he took some time off in college because he didn't want to get hurt. I think last year might be a little bit more of an outlier than what we normally see out of Leonard Fournette.
I don't know, man. To be honest with you, I honestly don't know. Because you would think that he should already be healthy. I mean, he should be ready to roll. I mean, he didn't play most of the season last year. He had a lot of time off because of injury, so he has a full off season to get healthy. And if he cannot stay healthy, you the Jaguars are looking to replace him. Then, and to be honest with you, if the Jaguars don't take a running back in this draft, that front office doesn't know what they're doing. Let's just be completely honest here. Because he wasn't healthy. I don't care what kind of player he was.
Here's the only counter to that I'll say.
They need
a lot of
somebody
things.
in there.
The only counter to that is they need a lot of things. So if you don't find a spot for running back when you already have Grant as well, I hear what you're saying. If you're going to go undrafted, fine, I get it. But you need a lot of things. If you don't have the picks for it, I don't think you need to go out there and say, well, we desperately need a running back, because you do have Fournette. Grant's okay behind him. Maybe not a world beater, but he's okay behind him. I'm not going to say they have to, but it would be very nice as a Jaguars fan. I'd feel much more comfortable if they did.
Okay, hold on. Grant did not do well. Okay.
Well, when he's healthy, but you talk about health all the time. He does get hurt a lot. But when he's in there, he is absolutely pretty good.
So you're going to need to get a young, durable back, regardless if it's in the 5th round.
Were there any holes to find for Carlos Hyde? And I'm going to say no.
You're going to get more holes. You're going to get more holes because You're going to get more holes because Nick Foles there.
It's going down to Jacksonville.
You're going to get him because the arm that Foles has over. I'm already blanking out of the old running quarterback.
I'm talking about Blake Bortles.
Yeah, you're already going to get it because they don't have to. Setting in the box isn't going to work. Foles will throw over your head.
Well, Scott says ask Bama which running back they want to get rid of. Josh Jacobs is the number 1 target in this draft. Drew already had him going in the first round. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But at least in my mock draft, we'll talk about him a little bit later. I don't know. I think it's too high for Jacksonville still when you need this many things to go out and go for running back. It's too much of a splurge when you need help on the defensive side of the ball too still. You need offensive linemen for sure. You need wide receivers. You need tight ends. I don't know, Drew. It's still kind of a stretch.
Frank says you should do shots every 20 minutes on Friday, make getting to the finish a mission. Listen, man, I've been up since 2:30.
Hasn't he been messing up enough?
I've been up since 2:30 this morning. I am on my 5th beer. I am struggling enough to get through this, man.
Well, let's talk Buccaneers then. Let's
move
on. I'll let you start. Go ahead. Where does Tampa Bay go?
With the 39th pick, the Buccaneers are going to take Mack Wilson, middle linebacker. What's wrong?
No, I'm checking my picks. Go ahead.
Mack Wilson, middle linebacker, Alabama. There's definitely a huge drop-off from the Devons to Mack Wilson. A lot of people are kind of down on the linebacking core this year, but they're in need of a middle linebacker. There's no doubt about it. And after losing Quan Alexander, you have a need. And in my mock draft, they did not take that at the first pick. So you're going to have to do it now with their second pick. And luckily for them, they get the third best linebacker or quote-unquote third best linebacker in the draft.
It depends who you ask.
I promise.
It depends who you ask. I don't think Mac Wilson's even in the second round. I think he kind of dropped off a little bit. We've kind of seen some other guys rise up above and take his spot. I actually have them going a different direction because I had them taking Devin White with the 5th pick overall in this draft. So they went pretty high in linebacker in mine. I see them going and taking Will Grier, shocking everybody, taking a backup quarterback for now who can learn behind Jameis Winston, where we figure out whether Jameis Winston is even worth keeping around or not. If they do, and Will Grier falls this far, and they pass on quarterback, there's some questions to be answered in Tampa Bay, I think. That's still the biggest position of need for every team in the NFL. You got to have quarterbacks, and especially when you look at the way they've played, you got to have a number 2 behind Jameis because you don't know that he's going to be available.
I absolutely love this pick. As everyone knows, Will Grier is my sleeper quarterback in this draft. I think he's very underrated. I like what I've seen out of him in college. It's just, I think the Buccaneers are not going to put any pressure behind Jameis Winston. As dumb as that sounds, they're saying, you're our guy until you prove us wrong. And I thought I already did prove them wrong. But not a second round. I think they are going to wait a little bit later to pick a quarterback.
Well, I'm not sure how many guys escaped the second round, but we'll talk about that
I agree with you, but I just think that's what's going to happen.
All right, well, let's talk Bills next. Go ahead.
All right. The Bills are actually going to get a number 1 talent in the defensive line here. They're going to take Zach Allen, defensive line, Boston College, with the 40th pick. I mean, he was a little bit slow. He had a 5-second 40-yard dash. You know, you kind of want to see a little bit more, but they are in desperate need for defensive line help.
Now, Scott says he thinks Winston is out of there. I don't know if I agree with you or not. I don't know what they're thinking in Tampa Bay. I think he should be. I think that's pretty clear to most NFL fans that he's not getting the job done. But they brought Bruce Arians in with the understanding, supposedly, that he's going to be the quarterback, that Winston is going to be the man for now. So I don't know what they're thinking. But if there's a quarterback that falls through there, especially one like Will Grier that everybody kind of is starting to appreciate as the 3rd quarterback in this class, you got to take him at round 2. It's just got to happen. Going back to the Bills, I have him taking Justin Lane, cornerback, out of Michigan State. He's one of the best coverage guys in this draft, pure coverage. There's some question marks about his run support and how well he's going to be able to make tackles at the next level. I don't care about all that. I draft cornerbacks who can stop receivers from catching the ball, and that's what he does. I think the Bills need that guy. They're pretty good on the front 7 right now, especially when I have Montez Sweat going to them. They need to address the defense. It needs to stay elite if they're going to compete in the AFC East. I think they do that, and I think they draft Justin Lane to get that done.
Frank says Buffalo needs O-line. They address that fully in free agency, man.
I don't think any one of the, except for Mitch Morris, I don't think any one of those guys is a long-term guy. But for right now, they've brought in 6 offensive linemen. I think they're going to try to solve it there.
Money in free agency. I highly doubt you're going to draft anyone high to go into your offensive line.
And I would agree with that. I think this is still a little high when you look at some of these other needs. They could go address wide receiver again. They definitely need help on the defensive line, even though they're still okay. They need cornerbacks.
I had them taking Hawkinson in mind. So, I mean, they focused a little bit on their receiving.
They could go tight end. I agree.
And then taking Zach Allen at number 40 pick, they focus on their defensive line.
All right, Drew, let's talk Broncos next.
With the Broncos, the 41st pick, they're going to take Daniel Jones, quarterback, Duke. Man, he's almost 6'6", and we all know how much Elway loves tall quarterbacks. You look at Brock Osweiler, you look at the gentleman out of Memphis
Paxton Lynch,
big, tall quarterbacks. I don't think he's going to go away from it. Yeah, a lot of people have Drew Lock kind of pushed onto this, but I think Daniel Jones fits what Elway likes in quarterbacks.
Well, you stole my thunder. I have them going with Drew Lock, a different quarterback who I believe is the more efficient passer. He's the guy with much better accuracy than Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had some great flashes in college where he looked like he could be an elite quarterback, but then he had a lot of boneheaded plays on top of it where I was kind of wondering whether he's actually an NFL quarterback or whether he's going to be that next guy that just makes too many mistakes in those clutch moments. So I think they're going to shy away from him. I'm going to go Drew Lock over Daniel Jones, but maybe they do go with the size comparison. Maybe they say we're going to teach him.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong. You know, Drew Lock has all the intangibles of accuracy that you want in a quarterback. Daniel Jones struggles a little bit with the short. The intermediate, he's really good. And the distance, he kind of struggles there as well. I mean, it depends on what you want. But guess what? Elway hasn't been able to really pick a quarterback. He got a free agency in Peyton Manning and won himself Super Bowls. Unless some kind of miracle happens, I think he might fail a little bit again. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is going to fail, but I think he's going to reach a little bit for a quarterback.
The only difference I'll say is it's okay to fail in the second round. That's why I say it's okay to take them here. You already have Joe Flacco. Maybe he works out. If neither of these guys work out, you can go take a first-round guy next year if you just bomb out this season. So I have no problem with a second-round quarterback going here, and whether he works out, whether he doesn't, I'm okay with that. So this is an acceptable risk here. The question is going to be, are the Broncos going to reach in the first round to go take one of these guys? We both held off and said they're going another direction, but they absolutely could.
Yeah.
All right, Drew, let's talk our next team, the Bengals here. I already had the other Devin Bush, going to the Bengals in round 1. Now I think they need to address the offensive line, and it starts with offensive guard Chris Lindstrom. They're going to take the best guy still remaining on the board at the offensive line position because they need help pretty much all over. They took it could have been a center, but they took Billy Price pretty high last year as well. I think this is going to be Chris Lindstrom because he's a great pass protector. He only allowed 4 pressures in college last year. I think they're going to get an offensive guard here who can maybe keep Andy Dalton a little bit cleaner because that was the best part of their team. Mixon did well on the ground, but when you look at it, they were scoring 40 points when Andy Dalton was just throwing the ball all over the lot. They need to protect him if he's going to be the guy going forward.
I also had him taking Devin Bush at the first with the 11th pick overall, and I think they're going to focus on the defense still. They need very much help everywhere across the board, especially that O-line, but I think they're going to focus a little bit on their D-line. They're going to take Draymond Jones, defensive lineman, Ohio State. He had a bad combine. It definitely hurt all of his stats. Everything was, he was considered one of the highest prospects in the D-line with all these names in there. Yep. And his name is kind of falling because his stock's falling because of his bad combine. But if someone can snatch him up and get him in pads that actually show that he can still play, this might be a great pickup for the Bengals.
Now, Frank said I did win our pick with the Broncos last time, but let me just make it clear here, Drew.
No one asked you, Frank.
Let me just make it clear, Frank. We are picking for what we think the teams are going to do versus what we would do. So whether Drew likes Daniel Jones or not, I don't know, but that's not necessarily his thought process on who he'd take. Yeah, that's not who he would take necessarily, but he thinks the Broncos are going to make that mistake.
They like tall quarterbacks.
They do, and hey, they got a thing for tall guys. Moving forward, let's talk about the Lions next. Drew, I am taking N'Keal Harry, who you have way off your board at this point, wide receiver out of Arizona. Look, he's a very tough-to-tackle guy. He had 38 broken tackles in college, which is a great number. He kind of reminds me a lot of Golden Tate, and I see him as one of those wide receivers who can make receivers miss. Matt Stafford for sure missed Golden Tate once he was gone. The talent was not there. Matt Stafford took a step back as soon as Golden Tate was gone. They need to replace a guy who can catch those intermediate range passes and then make something happen with it afterward.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't blame you at all for that pick. I did have him going in the first round. But when I look at this, they're going to go edge rusher because they did not take one in the first round. They're going to go ahead and take Jalen Ferguson, edge rusher out of Louisiana Tech. This guy didn't go to the combine. He played all 4 years at there and has and holds the NCAA sack record. I mean, this guy is very under the radar. If you watch his highlights, man, he is quick to the ball carrier. Yes, he was playing with a little bit less quality of players around him or going against him. But when you see these players and you see him dominate on the field like that, I think he's going to be a great pro, and I think the Lions steal here with a great edge rusher.
I agree with you, man. I think that'd be a good pick. Again, he's one of those guys that's under the radar, so it's a bit of a reach. I probably don't have him in my second round, but he's a guy that maybe you take him and he develops into the next star. He's the next small college guy that everybody's always looking for. I see this as a 3rd or 4th round pick, but I'm okay with that. I think the Lions, again, if they don't take pass rusher early, you could go get somebody to play next to Trey Flowers, and I have no problem with that.
Well, we got to always remember what
or across from Trey Flowers,
Patricia learn under, and that's Belichick. And what does Belichick know? He knows how to find that steal of the draft, and I think this is going to be his chance to try to do that as well.
Okay, let's talk Packers next, because I have in my opinions, one of the most left field picks that I have. This one, you're going to call me crazy, but I have them taking middle linebacker Ben Burr-Criven out of Washington. He's one of the best coverage linebackers in this draft. There's kind of questions about his run support and how much he could be able to help in the run game, but he's a very good cover 2 safety, and they just spent all this money bringing in defensive linemen with both Preston and Zadarius Smith. I have them drafting Jerry Tillery to help on the defensive line as well. So they are already beefed up on that second line. They need a guy who's going to be able to drop back and cover tight ends, cover receivers over the slots, and I think he is the best guy, except for maybe Devin White, in this draft at covering from the linebacker position.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all for there. You gave me a hard time for not giving weapons to Aaron Rodgers. And so with the 44th pick, I have them taking Paris Campbell, wide receiver, Ohio State. Talk about a fast weapon for Aaron Rodgers to get the ball to. A 4.31 second 40-yard dash. I mean, this guy is quick off his feet, and guess what? He can jump. He jumped over 10 feet on the board jump. I mean, this guy put up combine numbers like crazy. Yeah, his career in Ohio State's a little bit wish-washy,
well, I
but
say
he
pump
did
the
well.
brakes because they had a lot of weapons at Ohio State. So don't worry about the production as much because the ball can only go so many places.
To me, that means that he didn't have a lot of wear on those tires.
Exactly.
And he's going to find plenty of it with Aaron Rodgers throwing in the ball.
And I like that too. I already had a receiver off the board of them. I had them taking DK Metcalf all the way up at pick 12 because I had him falling to them.
Yeah.
So I see this as one of those positions where the Packers can address any one of these spots. I like both of those picks.
Yeah.
I thought they just desperately needed a middle linebacker, so I'm like, I'm taking one.
Yeah.
And I just didn't see Mac Wilson as the guy.
You didn't see that?
I didn't. He's not even in my second round. Let's talk about the Falcons next. I think they need help at cornerback. Obviously, you look at what they've done already in my draft. I had them taking, I believe, a defensive lineman. I had them taking Brian Burns, an edge rusher already. They could go take a defensive tackle here. They could take Clemson's Christian Wilkins, who I don't have off the board yet. But I think they need a cornerback who's going to be able to shore up the passing game a little bit. When you put points on the board like the Falcons can, other teams are going to be throwing the ball against you as well. They need somebody who's going to be able to take away as many of those possessions as possible, to break up passes, to keep the receivers blanketed. I think that pick is going to be Julian Love out of Notre Dame. He's a good player, but to me, his best is breaking up passes once they're already at his, in the wide receiver's hands. He's very good at getting the ball out of their hands. He's a very good mix-it-up corner. He doesn't really shine anywhere else for me, but I still see him as one of those corners who can make an impact in this draft.
This is another one of those picks in the first round where we matched up. I also have them taking Brian Burns, the edge rusher out of Florida State. And I think they're still going to focus on the defensive end. I also think they're going to focus on the defensive back part of it, but I think they're going to go safety. They're going to go Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out of Florida. I mean, they need someone. Oh, I am so sorry. I'm reading the wrong thing. They actually go to offensive line. I was in the Redskins. I apologize completely for that. They're going to focus on the offensive line. They're going to get a number one talent out of Greg Little out of Ole Miss. They need to keep Matt Ryan upright. There's no doubt about it. They need to be focusing on that secondary, because as soon as the gentleman I'm thinking of, and that's why I was like, oh, that makes sense, but he was gone. He wasn't there yet. The safety that went down, they needed help on defense. There's no doubt about it, but they also need help on that offensive line. They need to figure out a run game. Hopefully Greg Little will help that at that need.
I would love it. Again, I have Little gone already, but I think that's a worthy pick for them. I think they probably will shift him inside to play guard, but that's okay. They need help pretty much all along the offensive line at this point. They went from very good 2 years ago to somewhat average, and these guys are getting old kind of now.
Yeah.
So I think any help on the offensive line is great for the Falcons.
Absolutely.
Let's talk Redskins, Drew, here.
Let me do this because I was ahead of myself.
Go ahead.
The Redskins, obviously, are going to focus on their defensive backs. They're going to put a safety next to Landon Collins, and they're going to get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, safety out of Florida. I was a little ahead of myself. When they put this guy right here, you're talking about a guy that can come in and cover the slot. You're talking about a guy that is graded very high in the prospects of safety. This is kind of that underlining guy that kind of a team like the Patriots is looking at. If the Redskins steal this guy at 46, they got two safeties that they don't have to worry about that position for a long time.
And the defense is the best part of the Redskins team, but I have them taking Daniel Jones, quarterback out of Duke. And when I look at this pick, Drew, we already saw last year when Alex Smith went down, pretty much their playoff hopes went down with him. They just brought in Case Keenum, but if he doesn't stay protected and he gets hurt, they can't have another repeat of last year because this defense won't be elite forever. I see them drafting Daniel Jones here, getting a cheap quarterback to play behind Case Keenum, so that way if something happens to him, they at least have a halfway decent backup plan here. I think the Redskins could be a playoff team if they get good quarterback play out of either one of these guys.
Scott says they need to find a way to get Julio more involved. He's talking about the Falcons. Man, he led the league in receiving yards. I mean,
I agree. He's involved.
In my opinion, he needs to get involved in the red zone, and I think that's more him than it is the system around him.
And they already have all these other weapons at wide receiver. Austin Hooper is still a decent tight end. I mean, they've just drafted Calvin Ridley really high.
He came off
they need Sanu because
yeah.
it's difficult. They have a lot of targets. I think the story is always going to be we need to get this guy involved in the passing game because it's hard spreading the targets around.
And let's be completely honest. If you guys play any kind of fantasy where it's only touchdowns, Sanu's one of those guys you pick up because he finds himself open a lot in the red zone because everyone else is focusing on Jones or Calvin now and Hooper.
Absolutely. All right, Drew, let's talk Panthers next. I have them taking safety Amani Hooker, safety out of Iowa, and what I see here is an amazing athlete, a guy who can cover a lot of range. He's a very good zone coverage safety, and I think he'll fit what they want to do in Carolina pretty well because they like to play in that cover 2 or cover 3 set where you drop the linebackers, let them play in coverage. You drop the safeties into deep zone coverage behind them. He's going to be a guy that's able to take the ball away and make an impact on the back half of this. He's also, again, best available. I think when you're getting a guy that's this talented, this late in the second round, you just take him. It doesn't matter whether you need him or not, and they do. but it doesn't matter. You just take a safety like this.
Well, they need help at both safeties, and I actually had them taking a safety as well, but I actually have them going the other spectrum, and they're going to take Taylor Rapp, safety out of Washington. This he's going to play strong safety. He's a great tackler. He's going to help you with that run game. He can do a little bit of coverage, but his strength is definitely against stopping the run.
Plays in the box.
Exactly.
That's what strong safeties do. So I agree with you, man. I think that'd be a good pick. I went with the coverage guy first. You went with the strong safety. Let's talk about the Dolphins.
Let's do it.
All right, our last pick of the night. I have them taking, finally, Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Again, this guy could be a first-round pick.
Yeah.
It never seemed to fall, never seemed to line up. The stars didn't align for him in my draft, and I saw him dropping deeper. He could absolutely be a first-round pick. It would not surprise me at all, but he is a little bit older than a lot of these other guys coming out in the draft. That's something to take into account if you're a GM, because you got to be asking yourself, how many years am I getting out of this guy? He's 23 already. He's going to be 24 before his rookie season is over. You know, some guys drop off at 30, Drew. We could be talking about only getting 5 or 6 years out of him before he's pretty ineffectual.
Yeah. You know, I had a safety run here. I think the Dolphins are going to go Deontay Thompson, safety out of Alabama. They're talking about Rashad Jones wants out. He wants to be traded off. And it could be, hopefully the Chiefs focus on it. It could be, a draft time trade. But they need help. They need help in this defense. You could throw Thompson with Fitzpatrick. These guys know each other from college. It would be huge to get these two safeties back there that have been used to playing with each other, or at least, practicing with each other.
I agree. And I have Deontay Thompson falling in my draft. He's one of those guys that, like you said, he didn't really do anything at the combine. I see him dropping a little bit deeper. I don't even have him in my second round either. But, he was my number one safety before the process really got started. So... yeah. He's one of those guys that maybe he redeems himself, maybe he becomes worth that pick still.
Yeah.
He could definitely go here in the second round of the Dolphins.
No doubt about it.
All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for tonight's show. Sorry we ran a little bit long. We talked about basketball a little bit longer than we meant to. We talked about football a little bit longer than we meant to. What else is new? Thank you for sticking with us. It's been a great show. We always appreciate all the comments.
No doubt about it, guys. I appreciate all the shares, the likes, the comments. Help us beat Facebook. That's the best way for me to explain it. We appreciate all you guys. Special thanks out there to Sharif, Scott, Jeremy, Frank, Brian, Jimmy, Damon, and Zachary. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
And we will be back on Monday to finish out our mock draft. We're going to finish our final mock draft the week of the draft itself. So we will see you then.
Yeah, we're going to remind you one last time. Well, it probably won't be the last time. We will be live at the draft. We want to be there. We're excited to be there. We're going to go live. We're going to make sure you guys get
that inside take
exactly
of what's going on at the NFL
of course,
draft.
Who knows how drunk I'll be, and who knows how much sleep I'll have. So I might be completely out of my mind.
So what he's trying to say is it's going to be fun. We hope to join you there. So for Sports Around the Bar, I'm Jake, your bartender. This is Drew. We will see you guys next time.
See ya.